Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to TV News and Reviews for the week. We've got 6 new shows to tackle, including 2 based around an island with something mysterious going on in both cases. 9 Perfect Strangers on Hulu, the Fantasy Island remake on Fox. We've also got brand new Cherry Flavor and The Defeated from Netflix, and a competition show about streetwear, and a competition show about surfing. We're going to get to all of that as we do TV news and reviews. But first, of course, the news. Let's talk about some things that don't have to do with Jeopardy. No Jeopardy news this week. We've already squared all of that away. We're going to have the new season of Jeopardy starting soon. But let's start with the renewals and cancellations. On the renewal side of things, Big Shot, a show that, usually I don't follow along week by week. I'm so far behind on all my shows, but every so often there's one show I just kind of pick out to watch every week, and Big Shot starring John Stamos was one of those shows this past season. Really enjoyed it. I think I gave it a B on its initial couple of episodes that I reviewed, and I think after watching the whole season, I think a B is pretty good for that. But yeah, that will be back for season 2. Coach Korn will be back. John Stamos playing that role. Reservation Dogs getting a second season on FX on Hulu. Loved this show. I gave it an A- just a couple of weeks ago. I think one of the fine offerings so far of, I don't know if it's considered the fall season yet for TV, but certainly for 2021, a bright spot there. And then a show I'm not super familiar with because I don't have this streaming service, but the Ms. Pat Show was renewed for season 2 on BET Plus. Lee Daniels is a producer of that, and Patricia Ms. Pat Williams stars in it. It's getting really good reviews. It just premiered like 3 weeks ago. I don't have BET Plus. There's a few services I don't get. I don't have Discovery Plus with all that, the Magnolia stuff and the HGTV. I don't have that. And BET Plus has released a few shows since I've been reviewing TV in 2019. But I just, for the most part, don't get to them. So, but if you're a fan of Ms. Pat, then there you go. Couple of shows ending. The Republic of Sarah, done after 1 season on the CW. Now, this was kind of a bummer for me because I rather enjoyed this. It was something a little bit different for the CW. Usually all of their shows have some sort of supernatural element to them. This one actually didn't. It was more, I don't want to say it was steeped in reality because it was sort of a ridiculous concept, but it was an interesting drama nonetheless. I probably will end up finishing that first season of that. And then Dickinson. Now, this was a planned ending of sorts, but it's ending after season 3 on Apple TV Plus, which will premiere November 5th, and it will run all the way up to Christmas Eve with their 10 episodes. It's going to do the Apple TV Plus thing of premiering 3 episodes on day 1 and then 1 every week after that. But creator Elena Smith said this is how she wanted it to end. She wanted it to end with a Civil War season, and that's what we're getting here with season 3. But guest stars for season 3 will include Billy Eichner, Ziwe, and Chloe Fineman from SNL. And this is really the first of Apple TV's offerings to end, kind of on its own terms. It's still a pretty new streamer. I mean, it's been around, I guess, maybe like a year and a half. It was definitely around before COVID, but not by too much. I think maybe the fall of 2019. But some of its, premiere shows still haven't seen season 2. The Morning Show still has yet to see season 2. The Jason Momoa Show, just started season 2 like 2 weeks ago or something. But so far they've only had really 2 cancellations in general. Little Voice was canceled after 1 season, and then Defending Jacob was always going to be a limited run series, so that was never supposed to have a follow-up season anyway. So, but this is, kind of a bummer. I liked the first season of Dickinson. I don't think I finished the whole thing, to be honest, but yeah, now that I know it's coming to a definitive conclusion, I may do, a nice 30-episode binge at some point. All right, moving on to some items for the new TV season. Susan Sarandon and Anna Friel from Pushing Daisies, if you remember her, will star in this show Monarch for Fox that I think we've mentioned before. It's set for a January premiere. They are playing the founder and the heir to a music dynasty. that is threatening to crumble around them. It was actually first pitched to Fox in 2019, and then they never got to shoot a pilot for it because of the COVID shutdowns. So earlier this year, they just said, you know what, we're going to order this straight to series, so we can expect that in January of 2022. The View is going to take some time to replace Meghan McCain, and they're going to bring in various hosts to sort of fill that conservative slot on the panel, including Gretchen Carlson and Condoleezza Rice. And then here's the biggest new season news of the week. Be Positive, the Chuck Lorre show, is overhauling its premise and cast for the second season. It's going to focus now on the assisted living facility where Gina, which is the Annalisa Ashford character, works. So the first season, spoilers if you haven't seen Be Positive, but at the end of the first season, like, they do the whole kidney transplant or whatever, and so they were like, well, okay, that part's done, so now we have to have somewhere to go with this. So they're still going to focus on the relationship between Gina and the Thomas Middleditch character, but the setting is going to change drastically and be in this assisted living home. So upping the ante with the actors is people like Linda Lavin, Gary Anthony Higgins, Daryl Stevens. They're all going to be series regulars now, and then they're adding in 6 recurring actors as well to play some of the other patients, including some names you may know: Ben Vereen, Hector Elizondo, and Jane Seymour. So it's going to be a whole different show. But you know what? Chuck Lorre does this. Mom was originally about Anna Faris and her family, and then sort of her mom, Allison Janney, was also in it, kind of. But as the seasons progressed, like by season 3 or 4, it was really shifting focus to the AA ladies and, the friends of, Bonnie's character, and the Anna Faris character as well. But then, as we moved, the last like 3-4 seasons, well, Anna Faris left, but I mean, seasons 5, 6, 7, were all focused on the AA gals. Anna Faris's character's family basically was gone. So Chuck Lorre, no stranger to sort of changing the identity of a program, and he did it, of course, with 2.5 Men too. Once Charlie Sheen left, that was much later in the run. But all right, so some odds and ends here. Seinfeld, if you haven't heard, is coming to Netflix October 1st. They spent $500 million for the rights to stream the show, be the exclusive home. It's been on Hulu as far as I can remember, years. I remember when Hulu did make the announcement, so I guess I do sort of remember when it happened, but maybe 3-4 years ago. It's been a long time. But Netflix is doing some interesting promos. You can search them up on YouTube. But it's kind of funny. They're acting like it's a brand new show. And they're like, oh, Netflix is doing an unprecedented, 180 episode launch, whatever. Up and comer Jerry Seinfeld. So that's fine. But what I thought was even more interesting than the Netflix deal, because, shows are going to change streamers all the time unless it's exclusive to that streamer. So, great. Maybe more people will discover it on Netflix. I am a huge Seinfeld fan, so sure. But what was the most interesting about the story to me is Viacom CBS is also taking over on-air rights from Warner, I guess it was. And so Seinfeld has been a mainstay on TBS specifically, but other channels as well. But TBS runs Seinfeld like it is the number one show, in its history. It runs so often on TBS, but it will be no more, I guess, in October. So they're going to run it on Comedy Central, TV Land, and Paramount Network. So that's where you can get your Seinfeld reruns. It's kind of crazy because, I almost associate TBS with Seinfeld and Friends. Because they've been airing there for so long. So that will be interesting. But yes, if you're a Netflix subscriber, you can check out Seinfeld on there as well. CBS This Morning is changing its name. It was first known as The Early Show back in the day, and then in 2012 they changed to CBS This Morning. But it's going to be called now just CBS Mornings. And the reason for that is because CBS Sunday mornings just trounces at all the competition. It's the number one news show on Sunday morning, beating Meet the Press, and I forget what the one ABC has with George Stephanopoulos, but it trumps all of those, handily. But the daily CBS morning show gets crushed by both Today and Good Morning America. So they're trying to sort of squeak something else out there, and they're also going to do a little bit of a co-host swap. NFL star, or former NFL star, Nate Burleson is going to join Gayle King and Tony DeCouple at the anchor table. And it's going to also switch studios. This is a bit of interest to me. So right now it's at the CBS Broadcast Center on the ground floor, but they're going to be moving to Viacom CBS's corporate headquarters in Times Square, and it's going to be at the same studio that housed Total Request Live with Carson Daly on MTV for all of those years in the late 90s and early 2000s. So, look, I don't watch these morning broadcasts. I when I used to work out in the morning, it would be on at the gym, and I would check them out, I guess. But it's been years since I've sat down to watch one. But I'll check out a couple of clips online to see if I can notice anything from the old MTV days. Even just kind of the window setting of where they are or whatever. But so I thought that was kind of interesting. All right, and then another little sort of odds and ends here. Rob Lowe, along with Parks and Recreation writer / producer Alan Yang, are going to debut a new podcast called Parks and Recollection. And that's going to debut September 14th. And these are getting very popular. I know Office Ladies is a very hot podcast, and that's with Angela Kinsey and Jenna, oh my gosh, what's her name? Who played Pam, Jenna Fisher. They do the Office Ladies. And then there's also an OC podcast, which is insane because I just started doing OC reviews on my channel 6 or 8 months ago. And nobody was really watching them, so we kind of stopped doing them after the first season. But two of the gals, Misha Barton and I guess the woman who played her mother on the OC, they're doing OC, recollections or what have you, reviews. But what's really cool about the Parks and Rec one is they're gonna do all the seasons, starting with season 1. But Rob Lowe didn't come on until towards the end of the second season. He started to recur, and then regular character, I guess, in season 3 or 4. But so he's going to be commenting on some of these earlier episodes that he had nothing to do with, was not in. So it'll be interesting to hear sort of his take on some of that stuff. So yeah, if you're a fan of that style of podcast, that might be a good one starting September 14th. And then for reboots and spinoffs, we have just one, and that's Tom Swift over on the CW. This is a spinoff of the CW's Nancy Drew program, and it is one of 4 new shows now that they have for the 21-22 TV season. One of the other ones is a spinoff as well, All American Homecoming. And then one is a reboot, which is the 4400, and then there's an Ava DuVernay show about the DC universe called Naomi. Don't know what that's about, but that they're all about the DC universe over on the CW. So I don't really remember Tom Swift from the first episode of Nancy Drew that I saw, which is the one I reviewed, but he apparently does have a book series as well. So, if we're entering into the Nancy Drew CW universe, I'm sure we can expect a lot of supernatural stuff. Which is kind of why I gave up on Nancy Drew in the first place. But apparently there's a book series that goes with him from whatever, 100 years ago as well. All right, so let's get into the reviews. We've got the 6 shows that I mentioned at the top here. We're going to start with 9 Perfect Strangers. This is on Hulu. It is streaming weekly, but they did put up, I think, 2 the first week. Now there's 4 up, maybe 5 by the time this will be put up on YouTube. But there's going to be 10 episodes total, I do believe. And so the basic premise is 9 strangers come to this, quaint little resort, this beautiful, beautiful resort called Tranquillium House. It's a health and wellness place that promises to heal everybody and transform them. But the resort maybe is not what it seems to be. And this is really just a murderer's row of acting talent here. Nicole Kidman, Melissa McCarthy, Michael Shannon, Samara Weaving, Luke Evans, Regina Hall, Bobby Cannavale are amongst the cast. And even our good buddy Jason from The Good Place, Manny Jacinto or Jacinto, he's here as well, as Nicole Kidman's sort of right-hand man. So Nicole Kidman plays Masha, who is, basically the caretaker of the resort, the founder of Tranquillium House, and so she is very mysterious. We're sort of figuring her out, I guess, as we go. So look, I've watched 3 episodes of this, and I like it to the degree that it's proven to be a little interesting, and I enjoy getting to know some of these characters and their quirks and what makes them tick and their interactions with each other and all of that kind of stuff, all the sort of character stuff. But my main issue with this so far is after 3 episodes, nothing is really happening. Like, yes, we're getting to know these characters a little bit. I had a little bit of a similar problem with The White Lotus on HBO, which also takes place, at this beautiful resort and all of this, and people are on vacation. And, here it's more of a health and wellness center. And in White Lotus, it's just sort of a luxury hotel. But still, same problem. I watched the first 3 episodes of that, and I'm like, okay, like, bring me into something. Like, where's the mystery element of this? Where's the component that is going to make me care about the basic story here? So right now, after 3 hour-long episodes, it's just a character study so far. There's nothing, the whole mystery element of Masha, and it's irrelevant because we don't know really anything about anything yet. And look, and I think I said this during The White Lotus too, that's okay for a show like Lost that has 22 episodes in a season to fill. But if you're going to be an 8 or 10 episode miniseries, you need to kind of get to the meat and potatoes here a little bit quicker than 3 episodes, I think. But that being said, a lot of the acting here is very good, and we expect this from many of these people. But people, boy, they have their quirks. The Luke Evans character is just a jerk, and that is his point. And that he really is trying to get under people's skin. And all right, maybe there's something more to his character that we'll find out. I don't know, but he is definitely getting under people's skin. But yeah, Melissa McCarthy, is not doing her dramatic best here. That bar has been set with Can You Ever Forgive Me, the film she was Oscar nominated for. But, well, she was nominated for Bridesmaids too, but I mean the drama film she was nominated for. But other than that, most of her stuff has been, more of the silly variety over the years. This falls sort of somewhere in between. She's definitely got some of her McCarthyisms. Something I really did not care for is that she dragged along her husband, Ben Falcone, who, look, he seems like a nice person, but why do we always have to have him in everything? He just isn't that talented, I find. But she plays a writer who is sort of struggling with her next novel, and he, plays her estranged husband, that she's having problems with him as well, and they have a video call. And as soon as I saw him pop up, that was just like, oh, this guy, like, come on. But I'm sure she's probably an executive producer or something, so it makes sense. But look, overall, I'm not quite sure what to think of this show yet. After just 3 episodes out of, only a handful, it just has left me sort of wondering, what is this show? Because all the promos make it seem like there's a big mystery, and even the description, on the websites, IMDb and Wikipedia are like, oh, all is not what it seems. Okay, well, can we get some hints of what is not what it seems, other than the fact that maybe Masha is a little bit of a weirdo, and she's got pretty specific things that she needs done, like you can't have your phone, and you have to be here at a certain time or whatever. But all right, that's pretty innocuous. Like, let's get to the meat and potatoes. So right now, I'm going to leave 9 Perfect Strangers with a B-. It may go up from there once I finish the series, but right now there's just not that much to even wonder, like, what's going on, So that's where we leave that. So let's move on now to Fox, and they have an island, a perfect island show as well. Fantasy Island. This is, of course, a remake of the 70s show, and then they did it again in the 90s for like half a season. I think that was on ABC. And then they made a movie version of it last year that was just god awful, gave it an F. I never really watched the original show. I was a bit too young. I remember the intro. It must have come on after something I used to watch every day, because I remember it was on like Monday through Friday on one of the local stations when I was growing up. But I remember, the intro and tattoo and, oh, deplane, that whole thing. I remember that very vividly, seeing that over and over. So it must have been on after something I watched, but I never watched the show. But I know the premise. It's an island that, is magical and can do anything. So this is a direct sequel to that show, because the star of it, Elizabeth Craft, is playing here one of the Rourke family. Mr. Rourke was sort of the caretaker of Fantasy Island. She's playing Elena Rourke, who is, I think, his niece or something. It's not his direct daughter. But anyway, it carries along the same premise, and by the end of the first episode, not to give spoilers, but she decides to sort of take one of the people from that first episode and make them her right-hand person to help her on the island. I've got some mixed feelings about this one, too. I think it does some things pretty interestingly. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think it does some things competently. I don't know if it's necessarily that interesting, because it is, a direct ripoff, basically, of that original show, because it's, it's a sequel. But the visuals here are gorgeous. Nine Perfect Strangers had a little bit of a darker aura to it. Yes, there was some beautiful scenery as well, but because of this supposed mysterious element, some of the scenes were shot and lit a little bit darker. Here, no, everything's gorgeous. Everything really is a fantasy. And I think that part works. It's visually appealing, and this gal is Elizabeth, Rosalind Sanchez plays the lead. Elizabeth Craft, she's the main producer, I'm sorry. Rosalind Sanchez, who, is just great. I have been kind of, following her on some of these random shows. She was on like Devious Maids, and like she's fun. You know what I mean? She's sort of a soapy actress, and that's kind of her deal, and it works perfectly for this role. Because you do want to have sort of a wink and a nod with everything you're doing. It is a soapy type show, so yep, perfect. Love her. My big issues with the show are that because they're doing 2 stories per episode, and I don't know if the original did this or not. I imagine maybe it did. But, I guess back in the 70s, we weren't so concerned with character development or, really great writing. Like, we just kind of got on the island and got off, did our fantasy and left. But here, look, we're in a new era of television. This is 50 years later. I like to know a little bit more about my character. So because I don't mind that it's a standalone, it's not serialized. It's a standalone show. You can watch one episode. You can watch a 5th episode. Doesn't matter. There's no real continuity. But there are 2 stories in each episode. And I think doing that caused them to be very watered down, very basic. And I didn't really find much interest in the particular subject matter. I watched 2 episodes of this, and both episodes had sort of the same issue. All 4 stories were just very sort of underdeveloped because of that premise. Like, I feel like they should have maybe stuck to one main story, and then Elena Rourke, could have really tended to that one person rather than sort of bouncing all over the place and not giving us any real character development. It's very, very basic stuff. So, look, it's soapy. It's summer fun. I certainly am not going to make this appointment television, but I think it does enough right to give it a slight recommend. So I leave this new version of Fantasy Island with a C+. So up next, we're going to go to brand new Cherry Flavor, the first of 2 Netflix shows this week. And this is, so far as I know, a series. It is not a mini series, so this could get a second season. I don't know, but like most Netflix shows, all 8 episodes are up right now for your streaming pleasure. I watched the first at least 2. I might have gotten 3 in there. But essentially, Lisa Nova is the lead character here. She comes to LA wanting to direct her first movie, but sort of makes friends with the wrong people that stab her in the back and want something a little more devious from her. So her dream project goes awry and goes south. And there she meets Catherine Keener, who plays this sort of mysterious figure called Boro. And then we see the supernatural element of this horror-based series. I didn't quite know what this was when I first clicked on it. I try to watch everything, so I don't look too much into these shows beforehand. I'm like, okay, there's a new show. And I like Catherine Keener, and I love the star of this is Rosa Salazar, who was in my #1 show of 2019 called Undone. She also voiced the title character in Alita Battle Angel. So she's really been on my radar these last couple of years, and she is great here. I mean, the show almost, kind of hinges on how well she performs in it because she's in almost every scene. But there's some real creepy stuff going on in the show. There's zombies. There's supernatural kittens. There's a lot of kitten stuff in this show, which I love cats, but I don't know how I feel about supernatural ones. But Catherine Keener always has had this sort of odd aura about her. It's why she was perfect as the mother in Get Out. She plays sort of mysterious creep very well. And, of all 3 of the, sort of shows with the mystery elements that we've had so far this week, this is by far the one that really leads with the mystery and the horror attributes. So for that, I was certainly invested. I think the acting is good here. I think some of the stuff is maybe a little too gratuitous for my taste. And it seemed like maybe they were going a little too hard for a American Horror Story type of vibe. Maybe we could have seen this get its own kind of take on things or its own way to shoot some of the horror stuff or whatever. But as we're going along on this journey with Lisa Nova, Rosa is the actress, but with Lisa's character, this is one where I was like, okay, you're hooking me in like with the actual things that are happening. Don't know what most of them mean yet, as I'm only a few episodes in, but that's okay because at least they're showing me that supernatural element, and taking us sort of into that universe. So I like this. Again, a lot of it depends on how it's going to end. 9 Perfect Strangers could bump up. This could bump down. I don't know, but for now, I thought this was pretty enjoyable. It is getting a fair amount of buzz, and so I can recommend it as someone who is squeamish about some horror stuff. And I think a lot of times, the streaming horror stuff and the American Horror Story goes a little too far for my taste, but it's real visceral. If you like that kind of stuff, this is going to be up your alley. I think Brand New Cherry Flavor for me gets a B+. Let's stay on Netflix and go to The Defeated. This is a show that I had to kind of seek out. Like, Netflix wasn't really advertising it. It has not been in their top 10, but I do try to kind of track, like, every new show that comes up on broadcast and streaming. And this came up, and it stars Taylor Kitsch, who, from the Friday Night Lights days, I was a fan of. I think his movie career certainly fizzled out, but anyway, the concept sounded interesting to me, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to check this out. It is one of the shows that's sort of half English and half in a different language, in this case, German, but we set this in 1946 in Berlin, so it's after the war, and the people here obviously are the defeated. The city of Berlin is, just been reduced to rubble for the most part. There's no laws, and everybody is either a criminal or just trying to survive on their own because the war's over. And so this American cop comes into the picture, played by Taylor Kitsch. He wants to create a police force in Berlin and sort of take down this nefarious character, Dr. Werner Gladow. But he's also on his own mission to figure out what's going on with his brother who's been missing. And they find a diary of Anne Frank right in the first scene. So you're like, okay, I'm right in this. This turned out to be bad, though. It's not horrid, but Taylor Kitsch, look, I loved him on Friday Night Lights. It's where we all, I think, kind of knew him for the first time. But then the more movies he did, look, John Carter wasn't his fault. That was supposed to be this big, huge franchise starter for Disney. It didn't take. It was a bomb. The movie was okay, but none of that was really his fault. It was a bad script. But then he did that movie Battleship, and he was in... Well, he did that Oliver Stone movie that was kind of all over the place, Savages. So I was like, all right. Oh, and then he was in the Wolverine movie, wasn't he? X-Men Origins. So he was like Gambit in that, and that was bad. So I was just like, all right, I'm done with him. He was great on Friday Night Lights. But I saw he was in this. Okay, let's give him another chance. He's so bad in this, and I don't think it's really the writing, although maybe a little bit, but his accent, they give him this New York accent, and it's terrible. It's just so off-putting. It's just a scene ruiner every time. But other than that, I think they're kind of focusing on the wrong thing. I think the show would have been much more interesting if they focused on the Germans, and what they're dealing with, as opposed to having it be from his eyes. What we see is, okay, I want to make a police force for these people. I want to find my brother. I want to do this. I want to figure out that. But what I really think they should hone in on is the actual Germans, the actual defeated, and give us more personalities from them, and let us appreciate their plight, because look, obviously, they lost the war, but a lot of them were not, Nazis in the first place. A lot of them were, good people. That's why they were hiding, Jews and stuff from the Nazis. I just look, and we've seen movies like that, The Zookeeper's Wife, and we've sort of traveled down those paths, but I don't think it's ever a bad time to do that, because there's so many stories that are untold. These aren't real people, as far as I know, in this. So, you could certainly just make up whoever. But I just think they did the subject matter a disservice by going in that direction. There's like a romance, too, that just never fired for me. So, yeah, unfortunately, I can't recommend this. I thought it had a really interesting premise. But between the bad acting and sort of taking it in a direction I didn't really appreciate, I cannot recommend The Defeated. I'm going to give it a D+. All right, so 2 more shows, and they are both of the reality competition variety. So let's go first to ABC, The Ultimate Surfer. And unfortunately, I didn't know that this was on. This has been on now like 3 or 4 weeks. I just reviewed 100 Foot Wave last week on HBO Max. And that's been out a while too, but it would have been great to sort of combine 100 Foot Wave with a review of The Ultimate Surfer, because they're all about, the surfing competition, and they bring up some of the same people, and in fact, this is created by Kelly Slater, who is a very famous surfer, who they mentioned a bit in 100 Foot Wave. But anyway, so this is about, I think there's 12 competitors maybe at the beginning. But there's 8 episodes total, and basically it's the world's best amateur surfers. So they're not just plucking random people and saying like, oh, hey, here's a surfboard. No, these are, competitive people that have won different local competitions, regional competitions. Some of them knew each other going into this, which I think adds a really interesting element to the proceedings. But anyway, they created this, not the people, but the creators of the show, Kelly Slater and, the producers, created this sort of perfect wave scenario, so that every competition or every, head-to-head, you're not going to be phased by, okay, well, this wave is acting up, for this person, but it's calm for this person. It's easier to ride. No, it's going to be basically the same conditions every time with this sort of wave that they've created. It was kind of interesting. In the first episode, they really sort of break it down for you and explain like how they did it and why it is what it is. And look, I'm not a surfer. It's kind of why 100-Foot Wave didn't really do it for me as a documentary series. But this actually is kind of interesting. I mean, it does sort of lend credence, I think, to the that surfer dude stereotype, because all the guys in this show just seem like idiots, and all the girls seem very intelligent and like, oh, these boys are so stupid. Yeah, they are. But I love that they're not really it's not like a romance show, so we're not looking at that angle of it. But because a lot of these people knew each other from before, there is some history of like dating or hooking up between a couple of these contestants, so I think that's interesting. The fact that they know each other going in really, to me, is something very, very unique, and I gotta give it props for that. In terms of the surfing itself, it all seems fine to me. I can't do any of it, so it's whatever. I don't really know how to grade it. Unless they fall off the surfboard, which they've done, even in that first episode, and then, okay, I can say that's bad. But when they're like in the barrel or like, doing these different moves, I don't know what any of that means. But I think this is actually a pretty fun show. And like I said, I love that aspect that a lot of them knew each other going in and have sort of histories competing against each other, or maybe just, hearing of one another from certain competitions. So I think it's a fun summer show, and I leave The Ultimate Surfer with a B. All right, so finally we're going to close with The Hype. This is on HBO Max. This is another reality competition show. This is, though, in the same vein as like Project Runway, Making the Cut, even maybe a little Drag Race. But this is set in the world of streetwear. And so, streetwear, basically, as it was explained to me in the first episode, is, things that sort of become cultural because they're out on the street. People in the know are doing it. So then, okay, the big clothing buyers, H&M. Okay, well, now here's our version of this. So basically, this is like, underground sort of clothing that is hot for the day or whatever. So they have Offset as one of the judges from the Migos, and then two other people I never heard of, but the contestants sort of knew who they were. And basically, it's a competition to create streetwear, create new looks, that kind of thing. But what I didn't quite understand about this show is, who is the audience here? Because people that are following things like streetwear and the social media of people who create streetwear and stuff, they're not watching this. This is not for them. Nor is it for, I've waited on Project Runway for a long time, and then I finally watched season 5 or 6 or something, because somebody told me I would probably like it, and I did. I was like, oh, this is really cool. But it helps to have interesting hosts and judges and all of that stuff, like Tim Gunn, Heidi Klum. Here, everybody's too cool for the room, so nobody, in terms of the judges. So, it just seems like they don't even want to be there. They're just like, okay, well, that's okay, but, you could have done this and that. You didn't. Whereas, Tim Gunn is like, all right, guys, make it work, So it just left me with this feeling of just, who cares? If you guys don't even care about these contestants, I certainly don't care, because I don't know anything about streetwear. I'm wearing a concert t-shirt that I got 10 or 11 years ago at a Metallica show. So, fashion forward, I'm not. So if you're going to have a fashion show, I need something more than that. Maybe, some of the contestants were kind of interesting, but at the same time, it's like you can get that from anything. I found the contestants on The Ultimate Surfer much more interesting, and they were all kind of the same. Like if you put 5 or 6 of the guys on from Ultimate Surfer in front of me and said like who's who, I would have no idea, even after watching 2 episodes. But like, but here, just the contestants didn't wow me. The subject matter didn't wow me, and I just can't figure out who this is even for. That being said, the competition portion was, very basic. It didn't stumble at all, but it wasn't anything new or that interesting. So, for me, the hype is another negative. It's a C minus. So all over the map this week, we've got from D plus to B plus. We've gotten, I think, 6 maybe different grades. But that's all right. That certainly happens sometimes. And some surprises. I didn't think I would like the Ultimate Surfer at all. And there you go. It turned out to be one of the more interesting ones of the week. All right. So as we're sort of catching up here, I'm trying to post these every 5 to 6 days for the next few weeks so I can catch up. I didn't do videos for like 2 weeks, so I have to watch this Martin Short, Steve Martin, Selena Gomez show, Only Murders in the Building. I love the Martin Short, Steve Martin dynamic. Love, love, love. So I have sort of preconceived notions about that show, but we'll see. Hopefully I'm not disappointed, but that will certainly be on next week's show. And I don't know what else. Maybe the new Doogie Howser show that's going up on Disney Plus. We'll see. But anyway, I'll find some stuff to review for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye.